Okay, there you go. Thank you, Melody. Just saw that's being recorded. Ready? I think everyone is in. So, hi everyone. How are you doing? We have a lot of you today, so we're very excited about that. It's been such a great turnout. And I see that people are still making their way in, which is exciting. We'll go ahead and let them adjust a little bit as they come in. I see one thumbs up, I see a bunch of highs. Hi, everyone. Hello. Alrighty, so we're super excited to have everybody. I'm just going to do a really quick introduction. We are Psychi, which is the International Honor Society of Psychology here at CSUSB. If you are interested in it, we accept anyone. We do have certain criteria that everyone needs to meet. It's a 3.0 GPA minimum. We might have an information session soon, so I will keep everyone updated on that. If everyone wants to follow our Instagram page, which is going to be Clarissa, if you could insert the handle in the chat, please. Clarissa will go ahead and insert the handle in the chat if you guys have any other questions. And then Caitlin is just hoping everyone has an amazing day, which is sweet. Alrighty, and so so I'm actually the president of Psychi. So hi everybody, if you have any questions, you could direct your emails to me. I'll go ahead and insert my email in the chat as well in the case anyone needs it. I'll go ahead and let everyone else on the panel that is here introduce themselves as well. So Annabelle, if you want to go next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Annabelle, and I'm a psychology and human development major. Melody, do you want to go next?
I'm Melody. I am in the psych science program, and I'm also the secretary of Psychi. Rosalia.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Clarissa, and I'm also in the psych science program, and I am the webmaster for Psychi.
Hello, my name is Rosalia Casas. I'm serving as this year's Psychi treasurer, and I'm an IO psychology major.
We do have Jessica, who is our community outreach, and she's in class right now, so she couldn't make it. But if you have you probably have heard of her through like outreach of different departments and stuff like that. She's usually the one that reaches out to them. And then we have our advisor, Dr. Campbell here. I'm sure most of you know who she is. She's pretty popular on campus, but did you want to introduce yourself, Dr. Campbell?
Sure, I'll just say hi, and I'll be keeping us on track today because we have a big audience and a lot to talk about. So welcome, everybody.
Alrighty, and then we're, to the stars of the show today, which is going to be the panel. Thank you again, everybody, for taking time out of your day to help us. We'll go ahead and introduce them as well. So we could go ahead and start with Adam. Adam, do you want to go? If you could say your name, program, your option, so thesis, exam, project, and your research topic or interest, please.
Sure. My name is Adam Selesky, he, him, his. So I currently am in the Masters of Science Clinical Counseling program with the MFT. In regards to the exam thesis route, I'm taking the thesis route. I'm currently looking at a thesis looking specifically at tabletop RPGs, kind of like D&D. And I'm looking at specific treatment outcomes specifically from that. Additionally, I have a lot of research interests specifically within the field of trauma, sexual abuse, LGBTQIA, different studies there. And I'm also interested in integrating different aspects of tabletop RPGs and nerd culture into different treatment outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and we'll also keep this order for the questions as well, which we will get into. So we'll go ahead and go with actually our Secretary of Psychi, Melody.
So I'm Melody again, she, her pronouns. I'm a third year in the Masters of Psych Science program, and automatically we do a thesis for the program. My thesis was focused on sexually abused women's experiences with self-blame and psychological distress, and whether experiences of shame and trauma coping self-efficacy mediate some relationships there. And I'm primarily interested in continuing research in the realm of gender and sexual violence. And so I hope to continue that within a clinical psych PhD program.
And then we have Marbella. Marbella, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Marbella Oseguera. I am a second-year student in the MACD program, so the Masters of Arts in Child Development. I am doing a project, or I'm going the project route, and my research topic and interest is related to adolescents and parents' practices that they use with their adolescents. So focused on psychological control and autonomy support, and just figuring out how parents use guidance with their adolescents.
Thank you, Marbella. And then we have Mackenzie from School Psychology.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Feakin. I'm in my third year in the Education Specialist Program for School Psychology at Cal State San Bernardino. I am working on research right now related to evidence-based practices for students with autism spectrum disorder, and specifically looking at how well teachers implement those interventions to yield positive student outcomes. I'm applying to PhD programs in school psychology this upcoming December. I'm looking to get a PhD in BCBA, and yeah, I think I hit it all.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Mackenzie. And then we have Amanda for IO.
Hi, it's a big group. So my name is Amanda. Pronouns would be she, her, and hers. I'm a little bit older than all of you. I graduated actually, I did my coursework, finished it 2019, and then I finished my thesis in 2020. So I am out and done, but my thesis was, and I'm gonna read, even though I should remember it. It was working women's cognitive attributions and self-perceptions after experiences of subtle sexism and internalized sexism. So that was my thesis. And then my research topics of interest were, of course, women, subtle sexism, kind of the cognitive piece and internalized sexism. And then I also still love the work-life balance aspect. So I'd say those are probably my top two.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves. You all have very interesting topics that I would love to read more on. Okay, so then now we're going to go into the questions. And before we go forward, just to keep in mind, panelists, that we have a lot of questions and a lot of people that probably have questions at the end. So in the interest of time, let's try our best to keep our answers concise and what basically just bring out like the main points that you want everyone to know, if possible, please. Okay, so for the first question, what is your program for and how does it prepare you for your future goals outside of graduation?
So in the MSCC program specifically, they're teaching us different practical skills through counseling. Specifically, they use supervision as in first year, you have a lot of experience because they kind of throw you directly into the water and they immediately have you start seeing clients pretty quickly. You learn a lot through different experiential knowledge, so you have a lot of different relevant subject matter that you learn pretty quickly. This pretty much prepares you very quickly for the actual portions of the internship that comes in your second year, as well as how you're going to advance directly into other actual practical aspects with your marriage and family therapy license as you continue to learn counseling skills pretty much immediately throughout the entirety of the program.
So for the Masters of Psych Science program, really the main purpose, there's two different parts. There's more of a general track and then more of a behavioral neuroscience track, which I'm not a part of. But essentially the primary purpose is to give you kind of like a post-baccalaureate experience, like research experience, to prepare you for a PhD program or entrance into a PhD program. So if someone decides that they don't want to necessarily graduate and take maybe like a gap year or two and find some type of like post-bac research position as a research assistant for hospital or company or wherever, you can go into like our master's program in order to get some of that experience. Because you have more direct time to like work with faculty and also work on like a thesis of your interest, which is something that you would likely be doing in a PhD program anyways. So yeah,
The school psychology program, we prepare school psychologists to practice in the school districts. And what we do is assess students for special education eligibility. And we diagnose students in the educational setting under different categories such as autism, emotional disturbance, intellectual disability, learning disability, things like that. It is a 3-year program. In the 3rd year, you have a full-time internship, which is what I'm currently doing. But if you go the PhD route, you can kind of shape your career to look more clinical. So you might work in an outpatient setting and work with kids with different developmental disabilities.
The MACD program is a little bit less direct as maybe some of the other programs. Within this program, we can do a lot with our degree. It's not you're not as confined, if I were to say that. We really learn about parenting, families, children's development, other factors related to like parents, children, and families. And so you can do things such as maybe having a child care center, or maybe if you want to teach at a college level, be like a parent-family liaison. It's just a lot of opportunities within the program.
Sorry, was I next? Okay. So the MSIO program, I did graduate a little bit ago, but if you know anything about IO or you're wanting to get into IO, you probably love it because it is broad. So the program is very broad. It goes deep in theory. It's excellent at building your theory and knowledge and then using that to provide quality application. And then the MSIO program specifically at Cal State does a really good job at making sure that you understand all aspects. So you probably have heard a little bit about SIOP. That's our Society for Industrial Organizational Psychologists, practitioners. So they cover every single base or every recommendation that SIOP recommends that a graduate program should have. So they do a really good job at covering everything. And if you like the field because it's broad, they nail everything and then provide application for you.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question is, how many programs did you apply to? How did you narrow them down? And so with that being said, what components did you care most about when choosing all the schools that you were narrowing them down to?
Specifically in my case, I had a lot of assistance from the lovely Melody, who is also here. She helped me out a lot in kind of being able to figure out how to start narrowing different schools down. So things that I felt were very important to me were the price of the overall tuition, the actual PIs, and what their research interests were going to be, as well as the different cohort size. And I used mftcalifornia.com, shout out that website. If you can check that out, that helps to list a lot of different statistics that specifically will kind of help dictate how big cohort size are, what different PIs might be specifically interested into, as well as the overall cost of tuition, which was the most important things for me.
So when I applied to the master's programs, which feels like a long time ago, I applied to both the MAPS program. I also applied to the clinical counseling program here, and then I also applied to a clinical counseling master's program at Northridge. I decided not to go to Northridge. I didn't go through with like the interview process because I had previously lived in LA and the location was not something I wanted to deal with. And I was accepted both into MSCC and in MAPS. And ultimately I chose or narrowed it down to like the MAPS program, primarily because it's, I could guarantee working on a thesis and also spending most of my time conducting research versus doing a lot of work in clinical work because they're very busy people doing building their clinical skills. So I primarily wanted to build like my research output, and I felt like the MAPS program could help me with that. Things that I wish I would have considered or narrowed down are definitely the cost of programs, like the financial aspect, because a lot of master's programs do not provide any financials at all. A lot of them do not have paid RA positions. So that's definitely something, if you feel like the cost is going to be an issue, to look for programs that do have extra funding or paid positions that are going to help with tuition. And definitely, if you're looking into like research, to make sure that there are actually faculty in that program who are not only taking students, but are also doing research in an area that you're interested in, because there's no point in going, if you're interested in a PhD, there's no point in going into a master's program where you're not going to develop some type of thesis that's going to help you get into an area that you're interested in. So yeah, and definitely the financial aspect. And I think that the PI, and thankfully there was someone here that I was able to work with. So yeah.
I applied to one program, Cal State San Bernardino. And so it was really exciting when I got in because that was my only option. And I chose to only apply to Cal State for tuition costs, and also because it's where my home is, so I could live at home and that would be cheaper. Again, like I mentioned earlier, your third year is a full-time internship, and a lot of the time those aren't paid. And so you really want to be wise when choosing a program in school psychology. Another reason why I chose Cal State San Bernardino was because it feeds into more Title I schools, which are lower income schools. And in school psychology specifically, your job can look a lot different based on the socioeconomic status of your school district or your different schools. And I like the way the job looks when working with within a lower income community. So yeah.
I applied to 3 schools because there's not a lot of programs in child development, so I had to search for them. But I applied to San Diego State, Cal State LA, and then CSUSB. And I ultimately ended up picking CSUSB because of tuition and because it was closer to home as well. But I think my ultimate decision was based off of the fact that I got to talk to someone that was in the cohort before me, and they told me about the program and their experiences in the program, and that really solidified my decision in choosing CSUSB.
So I did only apply to one program against Kelly Campbell's advice on applying to more than one. So I wouldn't recommend applying to more than one, but like Mackenzie was saying, this was my home. I had a sick relative, I had a sick parent, so I chose to apply to one, hoping that I would get in. So I wouldn't say, I would say if I had to narrow them down, if I would have expanded my search and expanded where I applied. Tuition, of course, is huge. And then just because of the MSIO program, I think it's important to make sure that the master's program contains all of the things that you're interested in, and just checking the classwork and trying to get actual like documentation of what's in their courses and how they run them before choosing. That way you can make sure it aligns with your future goals.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, and then this is going to be the last question I present, and then I'll transfer it over to Annabelle. But what did you do as an undergrad to optimize your chances of acceptance into your program?
Specifically in my case for the MSCC program, on top of kind of normally acquiring a GPA that was kind of substantially high, around like a 3.5, and really making sure that I was into my studies, I additionally volunteered at clinically relevant organizations. So I volunteered specifically at San Bernardino Sexual Assault Services, now called Partners Against Violence. And it allotted me to get very clinically relevant skills that prepared me very adequately for the MSCC program. And additionally, I also got involved into as many research projects as well as different labs, specifically on CSUSB's campus, as basically humanly possible, to make sure that I was able to have that research experience. And that really, I think, optimized my experience for being accepted specifically in the MSCC program, because I had both a tie of clinically relevant application skills as well as different clinical or research skills that were very relevant.
So for myself, because I knew that the psych science program was going to be essentially like a research-based program, it was already aligning with my ultimate goal, which is to get into a clinical psych PhD program. So I was already prepping to get into a PhD program basically since community college. I've put a lot of effort into getting a perfect GPA, really getting involved into some research labs with faculty that were doing somewhat relevant things to what I was interested in. So I was in Dr. David Chavez's lab, which focuses on like LGBTQ plus research, or one of his labs. I also worked with Dr. Beatty for a bit. And then I also started getting to know Dr. Sija because I had a feeling I wanted her to be my mentor for the MAPS program, because she has a focus like on women's experience with sexual violence and interpersonal violence. So I really tried to keep up with my studies. I tried to get involved with research, and I think that was probably going to be enough for the psych science program. But seeing as the point of being in the psych science program is to get into a PhD program, I tried to just do a lot, like a lot of stuff, trying to get as much research output as possible, trying to get presentations, and because that's essentially all I've been doing in the program as well, times 1,000. So really trying to get involved in campus. And I also started asking other students that had been involved in research, and I started asking faculty, what our PhD program is essentially going to look for. And I'd been working towards that since my undergrad. So it was helpful for psych science, but it's also going to be helpful for my application process again this December. So.
To get into Cal State's EDS program, I had a good GPA. I had relevant work experience, which was working with adults who have different disabilities. And I got really strong letters of recommendation. And I think that piece is really, really important because, and it also matters who your recommender is. So I had some from professors, and I also had some from actual school psychologists to speak to my academic abilities, my organization, my potential to succeed in graduate school. Also, something I did was in my personal statement, I talked about my experience with shadowing a school psychologist, because school psychology is a little bit niche in the psychology world. We don't do a whole lot of counseling, which people think that we do, and we don't. We do more psychometric testing of cognition and behavior and that type of thing. And so I really demonstrated my understanding of the field in my personal statement. And I think that was really important in showing the school that I know what school psychology is. I know what I'll be doing in the future. And now that I'm applying to PhD programs, I'm making sure to do that again as well. So I'm really focusing on, okay, where do the PhD graduates, where do they go on for postdocs? Where do they go work? And I include those things in my personal statement. So I think being really strategic with your personal statement is a good way to show that you know what you're talking about.
I definitely agree with Mackenzie that your personal statement is really strong and important in getting you into a program, as well as your GPA. So what I did was, to get into the MACD program, I worked hard as an undergrad and kept that GPA up. Really reached out to the professors that I knew to have those strong letters of recommendation. I wasn't involved in research like everyone else, so I did make up for that by being more involved within my community. So I was the president of a club. I tutored on campus. I had like experience with children as well, because that's important for a child development program. So really just keeping that GPA up, having a strong personal statement, and then those letters of recommendation. And of course, community experience is also helpful as well.
Yeah, I second Mackenzie and Marabella's personal statement for sure. GPA is important. 311, I'm not sure if it's still called that. 311 was pretty important for the MSIO program, making sure that you got a really good grade, hopefully an A in that. Honors was huge, making sure I got into psychology honors. That way you can go through, I think it used to be like 3 courses, because it was quarters, but making sure I got into honors. And then labs, I see a lot of questions. I can try to get to them in the chat, but getting into a lab, I was talking to a fellow person in the psychology department. She happened to be in a lab, told me the importance of it. And I don't think without getting into that lab, I would have had as good of a shot. So just making sure you talk to people, communication is going to be huge. The more people you talk to within your program, within the psychology department, the more information you're going to have and the more connections you get. And then lastly, I did do the IO concentration during the time I was getting my bachelor's degree. So that's when you're able to kind of meet some of the IO professors and get a lot more education in addition to that's IO specific, in addition to all of the stuff I had already said. So that's my recommendations.
And then we will switch it over to Annabelle for the next question.
Hi, everybody. Okay, our next question is going to be focused on reference letters. So does anybody have any tips on your reference letters, who you chose to be your letter writers, or any advice on choosing your letter writers?
Specifically in my case, for the MSCC program, I had my 3 letter writers that I specifically selected were based upon the skills that I had built with them, or they had been relevant towards seeing. So I chose individuals from Partners Against Violence for a clinical aspect to make sure that they could advocate on behalf of my different clinical skills. And that was something that I believe a strong reference letter to a clinically relevant program would advocate on behalf of those skills that they would be able to see. And additionally, I also chose 2 different PIs that I had specifically worked with in different research labs that I had built very close relationships with, and they had been able to advocate on behalf of the different skills that I had gained that could also be applied in both clinically relevant situations as well as different aspects in the research. And so I feel that those 2 reference letters, specifically from the research PIs, were able to advocate on behalf of me pursuing the thesis route as well, and being able to have that focus in that area. I would highly recommend that if you are getting different reference letters, you need to make sure that they are able to advocate on behalf of your skills that they have been around that would be relevant specifically to your program. I think individuals that are able to advocate on those skills are going to be able to give you the most strongly worded letter that is going to exemplify the skills that you want shown by those letter writers.
Yeah, so I super agree with Adam. I basically went through the same process with choosing my letter writers. When I applied to the clinical program, I also chose an organization that I had interned with for 6 months. But for the psych science program, like I said, I had known that I wanted to continue going into research. So I joined the psych honors program and, asked like my thesis mentor, for example, for that. And then I had also joined a lab. So I had asked for a letter of recommendation or reference letter from that PI. So essentially, these were kind of roles that I had gotten involved in that were going to be able to speak to my research ability and then my ability to succeed in my undergraduate courses, and just essentially things that would have been beneficial to me. And I made sure to ask them, like, can you write me a positive and strong letter so that way they feel comfortable, in doing so, because there definitely are if you ask a random professor, they may not necessarily be comfortable, writing a reference letter. So if they don't know you as well, so you definitely want to politely ask, but also be working towards these relationships so that way you can have a strong enough letter for these programs.
I second everything everyone's been saying. When I applied to the EDS program, I had 2 professors and 1 school psychologist. And then now that I'm applying to PhD programs, again, I have 2 professors and my internship supervisor, who is a credentialed school psych. 2 other things I want to say about this. I started thinking about who's going to be writing my letter, like from day 1. And I start building that relationship really quickly, and I'm really intentional. I write down the things like, what do I want this person to say about me? I want them to think I'm organized. I want them to know that I take initiative on projects. And so I make sure in my relationship with them that I'm really being intentional and cultivating those aspects of myself. The second thing, when I actually go to ask them for a letter, I usually put together like a short little packet with a cover page that asks them politely and says, thank you so much for all you've poured into my education, all that good stuff. And then I attach my CV, which is a list of all my academic and professional accomplishments. And I also attach my unofficial transcripts. And if you give that to them in like one nice packet, it makes it really easy for them to speak to all of your experiences. Also, I have children running in the background at my school, so I'm sorry if you can hear that.
I definitely agree with what everyone else has said, especially with Mackenzie saying about like this little packet. When I asked my letter writers to write these letters, I sent them my transcript, my curriculum vitae, my personal statement, and then I also sent them a little bit of information as to which programs I was applying to, so that they would be able to write with that in mind. So I ended up getting a letter from a professor, from an advisor that I had, and then from my employer. So I had that diversity in the letters as well. But I've been seeing in the chat about like how to, ask when it's difficult to like form those relationships during COVID. And I think it's just really maybe like going to the office hours, interacting with your instructors more, emailing, all of that could probably be helpful.
Yeah, same with the MSIO program. I think that I can't remember my third letter, but both of my letters, I did do what Mackenzie had mentioned, and I kind of prepared those relationships before those relationships had formed, making sure that I was really organized, prepared. I came to two of my reference letters were, actually one was Kelly Campbell from Honors. So I tried to make sure I just did my absolute best in her class and making sure that I communicated with her and just kept the relationship and my definitely put my best foot forward in the class. And then statistics, we are a very statistics heavy program. So I actually got a letter. I don't think he works there anymore, Dr. Riggs. He was a statistics professor, and I asked a letter from him as well. And he had me again through those IO concentration courses before I applied to graduate school. He had seen me, and yes, Matt Riggs, correct. So that's probably my best advice, I think, for the MSIO program. If you do have a reference letter from a job, just making sure that it's pretty applicable to what they're looking for the IO program. So just making sure all, like Adam had said, making sure all your letters represent exactly what the program is looking for and what they expect of you, because they just want you to be able to get through it and know that you can.
Great, those were some really good points that everybody pointed out. Our next question is focused on your experience in your graduate programs. So what are the best and worst things about your program?
One of the best things about the MSCC program is it's a very small cohort. I'm in a cohort of approximately 11 people. So like Vin Diesel says, I don't have a cohort, I have family. Those individuals in that cohort are very, very close to me, and we feel super supported. I have never been closer to so many different academics, and honestly, I've never experienced the amount of support and respect also from my instructors as I have at a graduate level education. Additionally, using the actual skills that I'm learning about in a textbook is really awesome. Being able to actually practically use things really is tangible for me. The worst thing for me is I did not prepare for the amount of reading specifically that it takes in graduate school. And I was always a student that was able to kind of pay attention in class and take diligent notes, as well as ask questions, and then be able to maintain a very high GPA. But it's pretty rough if you didn't necessarily prepare for the amount of reading in graduate school. So that's definitely something I would attend to and make sure that you're paying attention to what you need to read and building that skill.
So for the psych science program, I would definitely say, knowing what I do now, the best part is that I think it provided me with a lot more university research experiences than had I just sought a postdoc position. And I say that specifically because I applied to like 30 different postdoc positions this last summer and only got 2 interviews and didn't get into any. And this is like around the country. So like postdoc positions right now are very difficult. So like research positions for clinical psych specifically, they're very difficult to get into. And so, and these are like full-time positions, like working at other universities and stuff like that. So the program has essentially afforded me like just way more of an opportunity to really cultivate a thesis and like go over the entire process of like writing an IRB, signing up for grants, collecting data, recruiting. Like I wouldn't have gotten as much experience, I think, had I spent a long time searching for like a postdoc position. And then really the worst thing about the program, I would definitely say it's probably more lonely than some of the other programs because usually all of the students who are in psych science are trying to do different things. So like we're taking classes at the same time, but there was only one other person who actually did anything relevant to like my interest essentially. So much of it is self-driven. And I wouldn't say that's like necessarily a bad thing, but you only get out of it what you put into it. So it's like, this is not the type of program that's going to give you a master's degree and then you go find a job. Like this is something that you are spending the next 2 years preparing every single bit of your time to get into another program. You know, so it's like, so it's not over, right? And so if you believe that you can do that and you can put in the time and the effort and do research output, so not just your thesis, but working in labs, trying to get publications, presenting posters, traveling, doing all kinds of stuff, then the program would really work for you. But I would say because of all that, it's definitely tough. And I think it can be lonely. And I think in any grad program, definitely seeking like mental health support and trying to build like those connections and everything is going to be really important. And the only other worst thing I would say is the funding. Definitely a significant amount of debt. And I would say for clinical psych specifically, if you have the GPA and some of the research output, just apply out of your undergrad. There's no point in doing a master's if you're able to get in straight from your undergrad. Just save the money. So, but yeah.
So my program is amazing. I love it so much. The best part about it is honestly the job that it prepares you to do. I feel like school psychology is a hidden gem in the whole psychology world. What we do is so unique, and working with kids who have various disabilities is just the most fulfilling thing. If you are interested, if you really, really know what school psychology is and you really want the school psych PhD, I definitely agree with what Melody was saying and I encourage you straight out of undergrad, go get your PhD. I know that's what Annabelle's doing. She's brilliant. I took a 3-year in between and I'm going to go get my PhD afterward. But as for negative things, or the worst part about the program, honestly, I don't have anything bad to say except that some people who enter the program experience some disillusionment when they realize that we don't do a lot of counseling, one-to-one counseling, group counseling, like you see with like an LMFT. We don't really do as much of that. And so that can be disheartening for some people, but other than that, the program is great. You don't need to go on to get a PhD. You can stop with an EDS and have a really successful career. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really like my program too, the MACD program. Specifically, what I love the most is just the information that we learn, because I love learning about children and families and parenting and all of that. And then I also think the professors in the program make it really good as well, because they can bring that experience, that firsthand experience, and apply it to like the information that we're learning. So I really just love the material, and that the professors have that knowledge as well. I think the worst part about the program for me personally is the amount of presentations that we have to do in class. I think this semester I've done like 6 and I'm going insane. So it's just a lot of presentations in grad school. So if you're not used to them, it's time to start getting used to them. So I think that's what I don't like about the program.
For the MSIO program, I would say there's a lot of great things. The professors are incredible, very knowledgeable, truly open door. They prepare you, if you're in it or you've heard about it, they prepare you to the fullest extent. It is a lot of work, a lot of learning, a lot of knowledge. They do provide application in each and every course. And again, like I said earlier, they hit on every single thing that IO stands for and IO represents. So having that broad knowledge when you step out of grad school is incredible. Not all programs offer that. I will say the worst part is I was there when it was quarters, but it is not a bachelor's degree and you feel it the first day. So it is incredibly difficult. You have to want it. It's known, that program's known to be very rigorous, but it's worth it in the end and you learn a lot. I would also say, I don't know if this has changed. I hope it has, and I think it's starting to. They don't have a consulting application, meaning they don't have like a consulting group. And I want to say, Rosalia, I think you might be in the MSIO program, that might be changing. So that would be the only thing, if I could wave a magic wand and add something, it would just be a little bit of a consulting group to kind of get you a little bit more application. But other than that, that's probably my best and my worst.
Right. Thank you so much for all of your responses. I'm going to pass it over to Clarissa.
All right, so we've talked a little bit like about your guys' programs, but do you have access to other experiences outside of the program? I know we've kind of talked on this a little bit. So teaching, for sure, you guys have mentioned research and job opportunities. And so a little bit even more about like what your experience are with research.
Specifically in my case, I'm currently part of Dr. David Chavez's care team. Specifically, what we are doing is we are currently, something that I am involved with is I am a DM specifically for Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance. That means that I play D&D with a bunch of the LGBTQIA youth. We can do that online or in person. Additionally, some other opportunities that I'm currently available to participating in is Partners Against Violence. Recently retired, but discussing it a little bit. Specifically, that experience helped because I was a weekend coordinator. Basically, I had 60-hour weekends where I was working as an individual that would go out on outreaches and see individuals that had been sexually assaulted, as well as counseling those individuals. And that was able to teach me a lot in general about different counseling skills. And another research opportunity I'm currently connected with is Game to Grow in Seattle. They are a Game to Grow group specifically for D&D, and they currently run different groups that I'm currently utilizing data sets from them for my thesis project.
So other things that I've been involved with other than research, I did Coyote Research Ambassadors with the Office of Student Research my first year in the grad program. I have also started to train and volunteer also with Partners Against Violence, so that has been really cool to do lately. I also serve as a student representative for the Institutional Review Board for CSUSB. That's also an opportunity for students as well. I also worked as an undergrad, I worked as a peer advisor, and I've been working as a writing tutor for, like 3 or 4 years now in the writing lab. And so really there's a lot of service opportunities, I think, to get involved with like on campus in terms of research, I had primarily worked with, I still do work with Dr. David Chavez on like LGBTQ plus adult and youth mental health research, and also work with like a local queer youth organization. I had done a bit of coding work with Dr. Beatty on Latino women's empowerment back as an undergrad, and then really nowadays I help serve as a research assistant for Dr. Maria Santos on some projects that she has. I also am currently a research assistant for Magdalena's Daughters in Los Angeles, which works with female foster youth. Yeah, and so I'm also trying to finish off my thesis and essentially publish that off. But yeah, so I've kind of just been involved with various projects and also trying to see, what data is like publishable, what data is presentable. And I also teach statistics with Dr. McIntyre for this semester. But yeah, so various research projects, and anytime like a research project that's kind of in the area that I would like to get familiar with, I would always try to inquire and get involved with that, but not so much that I can't actually do my tasks right and be dependable. But yeah, so I've been involved in a lot of service and research opportunities.
The research that I have been involved in, I work with Dr. Roderick O'Hanley and on his behavioral assessment and intervention team. I've been fortunate to present my research at the California Association of School Psychologists Conference, and also a team of us, including Annabelle, are going to Boston in February to present at the national conference. So that's super exciting. Outside of research, our program requires a lot of hours. So even in the first 2 years of my program, I was gaining those practicum experiences working at all different level schools. So alternative school settings, high schools, middle schools, all that kind of stuff. I was also a writing tutor. I also, there was a question like, did we work throughout the program? I worked like a normal job. I coached for many years, and that helped me support myself financially. So I think that was the question. Yeah.
My experiences outside of the program involve teaching. So I teach a Psych 3311 lab. Shout out to some of my students that I see in here. And then I am a tutor with the ICDFR. So I tutor homeless and foster youth as well. So those are my two predominant experiences.
I did do research during the program. So like Mackenzie was saying, I went, when I was in honors, you have to do what I call a mini thesis. And I did present in San Francisco on that thesis. And then I was in the Work Family Life Lab with Dr. Agers, and I did a lot of research in there too. I think I did research, honestly, the whole time I was there, even outside of my thesis. So within labs, helping other people with their research. It's all super interesting and fun. So yes, I did do research outside of, I guess, the program, but the program does kind of call for it. And then I can't remember what the other questions were. I can answer any other questions if you have them. Just shoot me a text or shoot me a chat.
Alrighty, thank you so much to the panelists. I think we will stop there. So then we could open it up for questions for 10 minutes. In the case that anyone does have any questions, because you guys provided a lot of great information, and I'm sure they have probably a little bit more. Oh, I already see a hand up. Okay, Desiree?
Hi, good afternoon, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So my question was, I know this is being recorded. Where can we access this if we wanted to go back to it later?
Great question. Okay, yeah, so we actually have a YouTube page that we are going to post this on. If you follow us on our Instagram page, which we could post again in the chat, we will announce when it's up and going on YouTube. But if you just look up CSUSB Psychi, it should lead you to our YouTube page where we have all of our events is recording.
Great, thank you.
Someone asked, is it important for the graduate school to be accredited? Does, I think someone speak on behalf of that already. Does anyone want to talk on that?
I received a question about if the school psych program at Cal State San Bernardino was NASP accredited, which is just the national certification. It's not. We're in the process of being accredited. That only really matters if you're looking to work as a school psych outside of California. Also, without it being accredited, I can just apply for my national certification and I can get it and then work out of state. It just requires that little extra step.
Got it. Thank you. And then usually, I believe also like if you're going for an MFT, right, it also needs to be accredited. With Adam, do you want to speak on that? I don't want to butcher anything.
Yeah, definitely. I specifically know our program is WASCA accredited. Usually we go through the Behavioral Board of Sciences afterwards, specifically to go for our LMFT. But in general, kind of similar concepts about it. I would just make sure that you're able to look at specifically what the accreditation means. There's a lot of different accreditations specifically for each MFT program around California, and you just need to be able to figure out which one specifically is congruent with the life path that you're choosing.
That's a great way to put it. Any other questions? Okay. Oh yeah, no, that's Melody. Any other questions?
How does somebody get into the honors program for psychology?
Okay, awesome. So I'm so sorry. Would you be able to place your email in the chat? We're actually going to have a psychology information session. So we could let you know exactly how to apply, what it takes to apply, kind of like certain like GPA requirements and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead and drop your email. You could send it directly to me if you'd like, and I could send you information on that as well. So you have all the information you need in order to apply to psychology honors the upcoming year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Yeralden, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So this is for Mackenzie. You mentioned earlier that you wish you would have gone directly into the PhD program, but you can do just fine with the master's. I've had conflicting information about it, that it's really only if you want to do like clinical research or what's your take on it? Why do you wish you would have gone straight into PhD?
So it really depends what you want to do. With just your EDS, which I had a question about that. An EDS is an educational specialist degree. It's about a year more than a master's program. But anyways, with just your EDS, you really are you're limited to the school district. And then you can do some private assessment. With the PhD, that opens a bigger range of doors. So you can work in a clinical setting, in a hospital setting, in a university setting. You can move up in a school district. And the reason I would have gone straight into the PhD program is because the EDS is 3 years and the PhD is 5. But now I have to do like 4 more, which gives me like a whole extra year or 2 that I have to do. But at the time that I was applying to the EDS program, I thought that I only wanted to work in the school district. But then I fell in love with the field and was like, okay, no, I want to keep going and I want to give myself more options. If you are prepared and you want a lot of options right off the bat, then go straight out of undergrad. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Someone asked like, how do you go straight to a PhD program? Typically you would apply your last year of undergrad. So at least, I don't think it's just for clinical psych PD, but like my applications are due in what, like 6-7 days, something like that, on the 15th. And then typically the majority of them are due on December 1st. So you would usually apply like in your undergrad, which is why we try to get this information out early, so that way people can start preparing for this in like their sophomore and junior years. Or you would take like a gap year if you decide not to go to a master's program, and you would apply like the winter of that gap year essentially. And you would try to prep everything by like August, October, September, essentially, in order to get all of that together.
Alrighty, any other questions? Leaving it open.
Okay, so I'm the one who asked about the like how to get your PhD, like how to get in the PhD program, whatever, right away. So say that I'm my undergraduate obviously right now, but I graduate in spring of 2022. So should I be applying for my PhD like programs right now, as she just said, right?
Yeah, so typically you would have applied or prepared to apply for like this semester. That's why some people will typically take a gap year and still continue to like do research. So there's also like, I could be wrong, but there's kind of a misconception that like you can't like work with any of the professors like after you graduate. I've been in a couple of labs where like people have graduated already and they like continue to work with the professors. So if you decide to take a gap year and you kind of have developed somewhat of a relationship or tried to work in some type of like, you know, service or research position with other faculty, you can still do that over the next year and try to cultivate you know, a relationship and getting a reference letter, and then just apply next winter. If you wanted to do a master's program, then typically master's programs, the applications are due like February, I think. So you would have time to like decide if you wanted to wait for the next PhD cycle, or if you wanted to you know, just apply for masters, because most PhDs don't have spring application cycles. Again, I could be wrong. It depends on the type of psych PhD, but that tends to be the norm, if that answers your question.
Alrighty, someone did say, I am graduating this semester. Is it too late for me to get into research labs? I think that really depends. Honestly, I'm one of the lead research assistants for, it's for BFAS, which is the lab that Dr. Wong runs, or, you know, looks over. And I know that some of our research assistants, some of our RAs have already graduated and they continue to stay on with our lab. So I know that some research labs are different though, and they only really work with those that are still a student. So it's really up to, I think, the advisor, the person that's kind of running the lab and all that kind of stuff. So again, just reach out to anyone. The best way to reach out for any type of research lab is to talk to the professor. You could even just go on the department's website and look at all the professors' you know, research interest. And if it aligns closely with yours, you could go ahead and shoot them an email, try to set up a meeting, you know, say that you're interested in research, and they kind of help lead you from there, which is great. I know that my research lab is actually looking for RAs. Look at me plugging my research to in. So if you guys are interested in working, it's a little bit more in like school psych and cognitive psychology kind of realm. We work with assessments and creating interventions to optimize the learning experience for a child, but we're working with computerized cognitive training with a specific population, which is going to be at-risk youth, so children that are in day schools. If you're interested with any of that, just go ahead and shoot me an email as well, and I will try my best to send you the link for the information session. So if you're interested in that, but does anyone else have anything else to say about that in terms of, do you think that they're too late to join a research group right now if they're, you know, graduating in fall?
No, not necessarily. I don't know if anyone else would say differently. Like I said, I've worked with people who have graduated and they continue to like work in the research lab. So there's definitely like opportunity there. Yeah, so I would just start getting to know faculty and kind of asking around now.
Alrighty, so that is the end of our grad panel. So again, thank you so much for everyone that showed up, that took their time and really represented, their graduate program. We do this every single year, and for everyone that does show up always ends up, learning so much about the programs and benefiting from it. Again, I'm gonna drop my email one more time in the case that anyone has any questions. And then if you haven't submitted the Qualtrics link yet, if you're here for extra credit, please just go ahead and fill that out. It's going to be in the chat as well. And that's it. But again, thank you so much, panelists. We really appreciate you guys coming, and you guys provided really insightful information. Oh, and then the chat is going crazy. Alrighty, other than that, and panelists, if you guys have any, questions for us, you could stay. If not, you guys are free to go as well. Yeah, we're just kind of waiting. We usually wait until everyone leaves and we kind of have a debriefing and everything like that.
I have a session, so I'm going to turn my video off, but I'll just hang it because I don't want to close it in case it shuts it down.
Got it.
Yeah.
I have to drive home to be in class at 4. So maybe Annabelle, you can text me after and catch me up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, Mackenzie. Bye. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm gonna head out. Thank you everyone for having me.
All right. Thank
being
you,
able to
Adam.
represent.
We appreciate it.
Definitely. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Me too.
Emily, if there's any IO students, you can send them my email.